Hello, everyone. On this special edition of the Texans podcast, we had the privilege of bringing Matt Mackowiak onto our show to discuss the homelessness situation in Austin. Matt has been spearheading the Save Austin Now movement, which has been aimed at overturning the ordinance that was put in place back in July. Brad Johnson, one of our reporters who's been focused on this issue pretty intensely since then, also joined us for this podcast. We hope you guys really enjoy it. It was very insightful. It was a good opportunity to learn more about what efforts are being made to overturn it, what the city council is thinking, and what Austinites in general are thinking about this issue. Once again, we appreciate each and every one of you. Hope you enjoy it. Catch you next time. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Texans podcast. We have a special edition of the podcast today. My name is Drew White. I'm the senior editor here at the Texan. And with us, we have Matt Mackowiak. Matt, you've done so much. Currently, you are the head of Save Austin Now. You are the head of the Potomac Strategy Group, and you serve as the GOP chairman for Travis County.
That's right.
We have Matt on today to discuss the homelessness issue that's going on in Austin. We also have a reporter, Brad Johnson, who has done exemplary work covering this issue. And we just want to spend this podcast talking about what's going on in Austin, what has happened since this ordinance kicked into effect back in July, and what people in Travis County can expect going forward, as well as why this should matter to just Texans in general, what's happening in the Capital. So, Matt, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be with you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So for those who aren't as familiar with what's happened, either people who aren't residents of Travis County, don't live in Austin, but Texans throughout the state who've kind of been paying attention, like what's going on there, can you explain what happened on July 1st when this ordinance kicked into effect?
Yeah. So in June, the council, with I think very little testimony, very little public discussion, really kind of snuck through a provision, an ordinance that changed city policy, allowing homeless people to camp in public. At the time, there were exceptions to that. The two biggest ones being three basic exceptions. One, you can't camp in private property. Two, you can't camp in city parks, which, based on what we've seen, is not the case.
Right.
There's camping going on in every single city park in Austin as we sit here. And then third, that you can't camp at a building that has a curfew. And so when oftentimes people say, well, they exempted City Hall. They did, not specifically. Includes the governor's mansion, includes the Capitol, includes the public library. And I think that's sensible. But the reality is that since July 1st, when it took effect, it's been just an unmitigated disaster for our city. And I don't think that's hyperbole.
Yeah.
Every single day, there's a new example of how the policy is failing. We could spend an hour talking about all the ways it's failed. But the reality is, almost overnight, you started to see tents spring up, new encampments spring up. There have been significant consequences from that. Public safety is far worse today than it was back in June. Violent crime with the homeless suspect is up 10% in 2019, fastest increase in 5 years.
Wow. In
72% of those cases, a homeless person was also the victim. So you simply cannot even make the argument this is good for the homeless, let alone good for residents. And there have been profound public health consequences. The council didn't consider what happens with human waste and other waste, plastic waste that's created by camping when people are in public. And so we're literally having fires starting in homeless encampments. In fact, 2 days ago, one of our major highways was shut down for several hours in the morning because a fire started. So it's risking the lives of our fire department and obviously the lives of our homeless. We had an Austin police officer at our press conference when we launched this just a few days ago, who said that homeless people are being raped in tents pretty much every day. Women are being raped in tents almost every day, particularly in these new encampments that have sprung up. So, there are so many different ways this has been bad for our city. Bad for our city's image, bad for our economy, bad for tourism. Austin's economy is reliant on tourism.
Yeah.
Every single weekend, there is something going on in our city. It may just be bachelorette parties, right? It may just be a UT sporting event. We have South by Southwest coming up for 3 weeks. We have Austin City Limits Festival, which is 2 weekends. We have F1, which is a global event. And so, look, I just reject the idea that it is compassionate or safe for homeless individuals to put tents on Riverside Drive on the median. Of a street that honestly has been one of the most dangerous streets in our city over the last 25 years. But it is also a major thoroughfare from the airport into downtown or vice versa. So sorry for that long answer, but this policy took effect July 1st. I'll be honest with you. I wasn't all that aware of what they were doing until after it took effect. I think that's true for most people.
Sure.
Council meetings are very hard for people to attend. They're on Thursdays at 10 a.m. They last 10, 12 hours. I've testified 3 times. The first time I had to wait 13 hours to testify.
I saw that.
One in the morning. I don't say that to sound heroic. I want people to understand that they set this up so that they make it as hard as possible for people to participate.
Sure.
And most people can't take time during a business day to go down there and sit and testify for as long as they say you have to wait.
Yeah.
It took effect July 1st. My own involvement in this began July 17th when I launched an online petition via change.org to allow people to express their opposition to the camping ordinance. And I wasn't really sure if people were going to get on board. We haven't done any advertising, not 1 cent throughout this entire period. And just a couple of days ago, we surpassed 90,000 signatures.
That's incredible.
Now, I will admit, there is no geographic limitation, right? So it's possible there are people who visit Austin or who live in San Antonio or somewhere, but we've done analysis of the signers, and at least 2/3 and maybe as high as three-fourths live in Austin. And then if you include the people that live around Austin in the Central Texas area, it's an even larger number than that. So basically, the reason we are today now, launching this coalition effort to put this on the ballot, and we can talk about what that would do. The reason we're doing that is because the council is not going to consider changes to the ordinance. They've done what they're going to do. So now it's up to us. And so our argument is, let's let people vote.
Yeah.
Let's put it on the ballot, and we can talk more about what that process is.
Brad, you've covered this extensively. Yeah. I mean, basically when this popped up, this was something that grabbed our attention immediately on July 1st. And you've, I think, done some of the best work covering this candidly. Matt's just described a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the impact that we're seeing on not just citizens, right? Not just the larger community, but the homeless population in general. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen going out, talking with folks and just experiencing this?
Yeah. So right after the ordinance changed, Ben, who's behind the camera right now, we went out to take pictures of the new encampments that popped up. First place we went to was under the I-35 overpass by Cesar Chavez. We ended up getting chased out.
Yeah.
Luckily, traffic started moving when we got across the street. Otherwise, there might have been a physical confrontation because somebody was sprinted from their encampment after us and got away, luckily. But that's a pretty common occurrence in terms of the interactions. I mean, we saw the guy who got beat to a pulp while he was trying to defend these, I think it was 2 women that were being attacked. And
there's a security guard that came out and also as well. That was caught on camera. Yeah, where he was defending folks.
Yeah. And then I just went on a ride along the other night and I saw the remnants of one of those fires. It was an explosion at a homeless camp. And the 2 people that came in just looked absolutely devastated. One guy had flank of skin hanging off of his arm. It was harrowing to see. Also that night we saw a guy who had been had a lot of experience with this guy who had been kicked out of the Driscoll Hotel earlier that day, came back. So we went to arrest him, and just the way he was speaking, the way he was screaming at us, the guy was clearly not in the right frame of mind.
Right.
And then his actions in the booking facility, along with almost everyone else's actions in there as well, was just eye-opening.
Yeah.
And that's not something the average person gets to see every day. And then they see the person lying on the ground, but they don't see the interactions that police, law enforcement have. On a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that story for me, when you came in and gave me that draft and I looked at it and I was going through it, I honestly couldn't believe it. The stuff that the Austin Police Department have to deal with on a daily basis it really was harrowing. I mean, you feel for folks who have to see and experience that, and you feel for the people who are on the streets and they're going through this and they're destitute.
Yep.
One of the things I took actually from that story, and Matt, you may be able to, this may factor into how people feel about this ordinance. The police officers there said 90% of what they're seeing when they're bringing these folks in, it's drug related. It's people who have serious mental health problems. I imagine that's got to be factoring into a lot of the concerns that people have for saying, look, like we're now seeing more of this in a way that prior to the ordinance we just didn't see. And I think the public safety component to this for just people walking down the streets has got to be a driving, if not the driving factor behind why you're getting so much support, particularly on that petition. That's incredible. It's 90,000 folks that have signed on to this.
Yeah, no question. Public safety is the reason that we're pushing what we're pushing. And you're right. I mean, look, it's hard to put a number on it. I think it's well over half. I've heard, policy experts put it as high as 2/3 or 3/4 of the homeless population is either drug and alcohol abuse victim or a mentally health challenged, or a combination. And so if you just step back for a second, you say, okay, well, what is the homeless camping ban doing? What it's doing is it's taking the homeless population, the strong majority of whom have those issues, and it's now increasing interactions with everyone else.
Yeah.
And so, that alone should lead anyone to conclude this is not a good idea. And for whatever reason, our council has decided that it's fine. Their buzz phrase is decriminalizing homelessness.
Is that the rationale behind this? I mean, that's the thing that I am curious about is what is the driving rationale behind pushing this forward? We hear a lot about, this is a housing issue, right? You hear that a lot. This is not necessarily a mental health issue or a drug issue or drug addiction issue. It's a lack of housing that we hear. I mean, is that really what's behind this, or is there something else you think that's going on?
There are conspiracy theories out there, or even just theories out there as to why they did this. There's a number of them. I'm not sure that I've settled on any one of them. I've said from the very beginning that I don't doubt their intentions. I think it can be risky sometimes to doubt people's intentions,
right,
or to judge their intentions. I think there really were two things. I think number one, I think there was actually a very virtuous idea, which was a homeless person walking around who gets arrested for something, gets into the prison pipeline, and their odds of getting back into becoming a healthy and safe member of society go down considerably. And no one in our coalition, I don't think anyone in Austin wants anyone who's homeless to be thrown in jail for no reason.
Right.
And as one of our police officers who came to our press conference, who's part of the Austin Police Association, said, there's nothing in the city statutes that says being homeless is illegal, right? So criminalizing homelessness is not the issue. I mean, the issue is behavior. And the police department said they were getting 95% compliance with the homeless community in Austin before the ordinance took effect. So there was really no crisis.
Yeah.
Right? There's a crisis now.
Yeah.
I think people know that. People see that. We wouldn't have 90,000 signatures. We wouldn't have the overwhelming response we've gotten just in the last first 4 days since we launched our effort. So the issue that we're going to hopefully present to the voters is to say, we're not putting something forward that's going to solve the challenge of homelessness. It's a very complex problem. There's no quick fix.
Yeah.
What we're saying is where we were in June was far better than where we are today. And I'm telling you, the council and the mayor do not want this on the ballot.
Yeah.
They do not want this on the ballot. They're going to do everything they can to fight it. They're trying to say this is partisan, even though our nonprofit is nonpartisan, and my co-founder is a leading Democrat here in town. They are going to go after me personally and try to tie this to Trump in some way, even though he's got absolutely nothing to do with it. I imagine they're going to try to change the ballot language in a way that will either make it confusing or try to undermine what our ordinance would do. And then I absolutely believe they will sue if we're successful on some grounds. But ultimately, I think that would go to the Fifth Circuit. And generally, I feel pretty good about the odds there. So we realize the risks. For our coalition, the Save Austin Now coalition, we decided, look, if the council and the mayor are not going to listen to the public, and the public has overwhelmingly urged them to do what we're asking them to do. If they're not going to listen and they're not going to consider additional changes, then this is the only option we have left. So what we decided to do is put forward an ordinance that does three very simple things. First is it reinstates the ban on homeless camping citywide. It's exactly where we were in June. Doesn't say anything about being illegal to be homeless. Doesn't say you can't walk around. Doesn't say anything about that. Just says you can't camp.
Yeah.
No tents, no trash, no encampments, those kinds of things. Second, we would restore the sit-lie ordinance, which used to only be effect in downtown, not be effect anywhere else. We're going to put it in effect in downtown. We're going to extend it to the UT campus into an area that's 2.5 miles surrounding the campus in all directions to cover the residence areas. That is based on a model that the University of Southern California has developed that's been very successful. So we think that's really important. That just that's when we were talking about compliance before. That's partially camping, but it was partially sit-lie.
Got it.
If someone is on a park bench with a sleeping bag overnight and in an area where the sit-lie ordinance is in place, the police don't go up and arrest them. They ask them to move. If they don't move, they don't comply, that's when you can get into that situation. The third thing that we're going to propose in the ordinance is to ban panhandling at night. We recognize there are First Amendment protections. If you want to hold a sign, as long as that sign doesn't say something threatening or vulgar, you can do that. But that's really not panhandling in a way. Panhandling to me, I think to most people, is if you're confronted and asked for money.
Yeah.
And that's different than someone holding a sign. You can choose to read the sign, you can choose to make eye contact, you can choose to say something to them, or you can choose not to do those things. When someone confronts you, it does put you in an awkward position. You may have compassion, you may want to help them, you may not know if your help is going to lead to them doing things that are self-destructive in terms of drug and alcohol abuse. So either way, we're not saying panhandling is illegal. We're saying at night it should be, and that's simply a public safety issue. Women walking, to work, home from work, to their home, to their car, getting out of the gym, leaving a bar or restaurant, should not be afraid of being, confronted by a panhandler at night when it's dark. It's simply a public safety issue. So those are the three things that are in our ordinance. There's nothing else. You talked about housing. We're not against housing. Our coalition believes that putting these people in safe, sheltered environments is a very positive thing. And nothing that we're proposing does anything to challenge the momentum that's going in that direction. And there's some very good work being done. Salvation Army has a facility with over 100 beds opening this weekend, a very brand new facility. The Austin Chamber is trying to raise several $1 million through the ATX Helps effort. Mobile Loaves and Fishes has a fantastic facility called Community First Village. Brad, if you haven't gone down there to see it, I would encourage you to go down there and report on it. It's a fantastic story that most people don't know about. They have basically a homeless encampment with housing. It's basically micro-housing on the property. And a third of the people who work there, who live there, work on the facility. It's quite literally a village. The other two, you have to work and you have to pay something to live there. It's a very small amount of money, but it's a wholly self-contained community. It's absolutely extraordinary. Can't use drugs while you're there. Can't use alcohol. But the founder of it, Alan Graham, believes that homelessness is not as much a problem of housing or a problem of drug and alcohol abuse or mental health, although those are serious challenges. He believes it's a problem of community. He thinks homeless individuals do not have a community to rely on. And I think there's probably something profound in that. And so what he has done is, rather than it be about housing or anything else, he's tried to create a community where you have friends, where people can check in on you, where maybe you have a job that can give you self-worth and a
civil society solution.
Civil society solution, And that facility is, I think, tripling in capacity over the next year. He's bought land right across the street. So anyway, sorry that's a long answer again, but great. So we certainly want the housing and the shelter to keep expanding, and we applaud those efforts. We're just saying we think the homeless camping ordinance has been a disaster for our city from a public safety, public health, and tourism standpoint. We want to go back to where we were in June.
We've reported on this, and the businesses that have been impacted by this decision to downtown is something that it's gotten some coverage. Brad, you went and talked with a ton of folks downtown on a couple of your stories, and just, Royal Blue Grocery.
That's the one that sticks out.
It sticks out. They were like, we may have to change our business hours because it's just not safe anymore. Both of y'all kind of talk a little bit about that in terms of the impact and maybe the feedback that businesses have been in terms of going to the city council. You've been, like you said, you've testified 3 times. You've talked with a lot of these folks. What does that look like from just an economic perspective of just the daily transactions between people with regard to this ordinance? How has that negatively, positively, or not, impacted their day-to-day operations?
It's impacted their day-to-day operations quite a bit. I don't know if there's any studies that have been done on the economic impact. It would probably take more time to analyze.
South by Southwest should be an interesting case study. I do believe that.
Absolutely. But some of the anecdotal stories that stuck out to me were obviously Royal Blue Grocery. That's the one everyone knows about. But also the Omni Hotel. I spoke to the guy who runs that, and he said there's one instance where he had a female desk clerk basically get physically assaulted in the lobby, in their lobby, not outside, literally inside their building. Another thing he said was he tells all of his guests that stay at the hotel, don't walk after dark. Do not walk anywhere from the hotel. Order an Uber. So that's an economic impact right there. They're not able to. They don't feel safe enough to just walk next door to the convenience store or whatever it is. And these convenience stores, especially, are I would argue one of the ground zeros for a lot of these problems. The 7-Eleven on Congress, when I spoke to them, or I spoke to the Scott at the Royal Blue Grocery, he told me that they had called 911 20 times in one day for people walking in and causing issues.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that these experiences are being most felt downtown. They're being felt other places too. But yeah, the businesses, the list of businesses that have stepped forward and made clear what a disaster this has been is growing.
Yeah.
You had this, I think it was a bakery just a few weeks ago, pull out of this market effort downtown, and they were very clear that this was the reason why. You have the Vince Young Steakhouse that recently said, they've had enough. Yeah. Absolutely had enough. Hotels are absolutely being affected. Convenience stores. I want to talk about Royal Blue for a second because, that I think it's fair to say that business and that business model caters really to progressive customers.
Yeah.
Right. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. But for their owners to come forward and say not only that we're thinking about changing our hours, but in fact the location on Congress, I believe, has changed their hours. I think they close at 6 now because they believe it's far too dangerous at night. That to me, I think really says something. They're going against probably the views of some of their own customers.
Yeah.
But what can they do? They're dealing with petty theft multiple times a day. We have candidates running for county attorney and district attorney right now here in Travis County who are proposing basically decriminalizing petty theft. Right.
Wow.
So when you combine the homeless camping ordinance with this decriminalization push that's much broader.
Sure.
In terms of petty theft, in terms of criminal trespassing, in terms of sex work.
Yep.
We literally have candidates for countywide offices right now that are proposing that sex work not be a criminal offense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I do think the combination of those two things, if they come together, Austin's going to be a very, very different place next year if that all comes together. So, for us, our view is that if we can get on the ballot, we're going to be successful. I believe 80 or 90% of the people that live in the city support our position.
Yeah.
Across every demographic, every party, every gender, every neighborhood. I think the council is either willfully blind about the opposition that's out there, or they think this is just a partisan thing or something. They're going to be in for a rude awakening. I can tell you from the people that have signed our petition, we've done an analysis of those people. It's every type of Austinite you can think of. And I'm not talking about one person here, one person there.
Sure.
I mean, it is, I don't even remember the percentage on the parties in terms of voting preferences, but it was not overwhelmingly Republican by any means.
Got it.
So for us, we have to go out and collect 20,000 signatures. And one thing I want to make sure people understand, the 90,000 that we collected online don't count.
Right.
We've created an army of people, and we're emailing that list on a couple times a week, and that's a volunteer base, that's a donor base. Those are people who can sign. There's people that are motivated, but we have to have them sign a hard petition document. So for anyone out there who lives in the city of Austin, it's not helpful if you're not in the city of Austin because you won't be validated. But for people who live in the city of Austin, just go to saveaustinnow.com. You can download the form. There's a form where you can just have one signature, and there's a form where you have multiple signatures. And you can send it in. You can email it. You can fax it. You can mail it. And we're just trying to get to 20,000 signatures by July 18th. Gives us 4 months. We need 133 a day, every day till the end. And if we get to 20,000, we'll be on the ballot. And I think we'll absolutely win. I really feel confident we will win if that happens.
And there's 520-some thousand odd registered voters, and
it's a very,
right?
very large number. Yeah. That's something along those lines. And in fact, I think it's 5% of the registered voters or 20,000, whichever number is smaller. So it might even be, what would 5% of got to do the math.
It was like 26,000.
Yeah. So then the 20 would be the number. So I hadn't actually done that math, but either way, we feel good about it. But I'll say something else. Two other things as well.
Sure.
One is, we do need financial support, and I know a lot of people out there need financial support, but we're not going to be able to do this without money. We're going to have to, go out and collect signatures and pay people to help us do that. We're going to see how far we can get without that. We're going to see how far we can get with volunteers. But people can go on and donate to our nonprofit as well at saveaustinnow.com. We've had some good support, but we definitely need more. And then the last thing is, for people out there who are watching or listening, chances are you are part of an organization somewhere, if you live in Central Texas, that cares about Austin. Could be your neighborhood association, could be your church, could be your business, could be your trade association. Who knows? We need organizations that are going to be part of our coalition, that just support what we're doing. And so we're looking for that. And we're reaching out to neighborhood associations right now. We're reaching out to some other city associations. Our coalition is basically Save Austin Now, Austin Police Association, and the parents organization at UT called Safe Horns. Those are really the three core groups. We have some other groups that are privately helping us, and we have a number that are currently considering it, and a few that we're going to be presenting to. But we need more. We need our coalition to grow because we need them to be emailing their lists and bringing out volunteers and helping us organizationally and all those things. So if you're part of an organization out there in Austin or in the Austin area, we would love to talk to you about that. You can email me, matt@saveaustinnow.com.
Yeah. When they're filling out these petitions, is there anything they need to watch out for in terms of dates all lining up, minor things that can kick out an entire petition while they're judging it?
It's a good question. I don't doubt that they're going to use every technicality to try to undermine this. Up till now, we've really only used the single signature option, but we'll use the multiple option when we go to locations to try to collect lots of signatures in the same day. You would think the date would all be the same if you're collecting them in the same day. So I don't think it's the date necessarily. The real key is you have to be a City of Austin resident.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't necessarily mean you have to only be in Travis County, because there are parts of the City of Austin that are both Williamson and Hayes.
Right.
But what you need to fill out every part of it, and we make clear there's 6 or 7 different, or maybe 8 fields you have to fill out: your address, your signature, your date of birth, the date, what county you live in. I think that's it. There might be 1 or 2 other things, but it's all very clear on there at the very bottom of the ordinance. So. But yeah, look, they're going to play games, and so because of that, we're going to need to collect 25,000 signatures. Experts tell me that generally about a 75% verification rate is pretty good. So you can do the math on that. But I'll be honest with you, we're going to collect as many as we possibly can.
Yeah.
The more data we have, the more people we have that are supportive of this, the more we're going to be able to motivate those people, engage them, and organize and get them to turn out in November and vote, because this is going to be at the bottom of the ballot. We're not going to have straight ticket voting anymore. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a disincentive for people to vote all the way to the end of the ballot. It's not going to be as easy. You're going to have to go race by race. And the city ordinances are going to be at the very end. Now, I also think there will be a transportation bond on the ballot in Austin, $3 billion, proposing a subway downtown and more trains, more rail. So I think there will be a lot of people motivated to vote mostly against, I think that. But either way, there will be some action at the bottom of the ballot, but people are going to need to go all the way down to the bottom. But the key for us is we just have to get 20,000 verified signatures. I really think the arguments on the other side that they're making to justify this policy are ridiculous. They're not substantive at all at this point. It's basically down to name calling. And at this point, almost the 90,000 people signed that petition because they personally have concluded this policy is bad for the city.
Yeah.
It's not about any talking points that one side has made or the other. And so when you have a personal view on something that's informed by your own experience, and you compare that to a talking point from the other side, you're always going to go with what you've experienced yourself.
Yeah.
And honestly, this policy just keeps getting worse. I mean, you guys have done great reporting on this. Every day there's something horrifying going on in Austin.
Yeah.
If you can download this. There's an incredible app called Citizen. I don't know if either of you use it, but it basically populates 911 calls, and it can notify you if there's anything in your area. But you can also look throughout the whole city, and I actually downloaded it. I'm looking at it on a periodic basis now. I mean, it's unbelievable what's going on in our city. Now, I want to be clear, not every crime involves a homeless person one way or the other, but there's no question at this point that violent crime is up, and that
we've seen the data. The data is indisputable.
Absolutely indisputable. And they're going to try to claim that data is not correct. But again, I really think people have clearly concluded this policy is a disaster, and it's time for us to rise up and vote it down and return our city to being a safe and healthy and wonderful and welcoming place to live.
Well, we appreciate you coming on talking about it. I mean, this is a really powerful issue. I think it's just even beyond Austin, right? I think there are a lot of Texans who just don't like the idea, and we've heard from them of what's happening to our capital. Like, what's going on here? Are we turning into, San Francisco or something? There's just been broader concern even outside of Travis County. So I appreciate you coming in and talking about it.
Let me say one thing about that, if you don't,
go
really
ahead,
quick.
sure.
That is, I've been to Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Honolulu, all in the last 3 years. Not as an activist on this issue, just as someone who travels for business. And in all 4 cities, I was overwhelmed by the challenge of the homeless problem. It's important to understand that part of why the city bungled this so badly. It's been a ready, fire, aim approach from the very beginning, right? They announced this policy. They go against the police department. They go against the chamber. They go against the Downtown Austin Alliance, which represents downtown businesses. They went against so much Greater Austin Crime Commission, who all begged them, slow down, let's think this through, let's do this correctly. What you're proposing is not a good idea. They went against that, took effect July 1st. They take a 4-week vacation. They come back. The city's a mess. There's tremendous opposition already. They say, okay, in August we're going to make changes. They don't. September will make changes. They don't. The governor steps in and says, if you don't take action, I will. I'm going to use every power I have as governor to protect people in Austin, particularly state employees, state property, things like state buildings, things like that. They make a half-hearted attempt to make changes. They can't get a consensus. Governor weighs in again. Finally, they did make changes. And the third time I testified, I said, listen, I like the changes you're making. I think it's an improvement. They banned camping on sidewalks, banned it within 15 feet of an entrance to home or business, and banned it in flood and fire mitigation zones, areas where fires and floods are likely. The challenge is the timeline of how they approach this is, they put the policy in place. Then in August, they announced they're bringing a homeless czar in from Orlando who'd actually had a lot of success with the homeless problem in Orlando. She comes here, she's here for 3 weeks. I don't know this, but she's gone. She was gone in 3 weeks. So I don't know if she wasn't treated well, or she realized that the problem is too big, or the city is a disaster. Whatever happened, the expert they hired after they announced the policy, couldn't handle it more than 3 weeks. In the meantime, they doubled spending on homelessness from $30 million to $62 million in the budget, and then just recently, in the last couple of weeks, they've hired a new homeless czar who's helping California. What I wanted to say about the cities is that in all 4 of those cities, the homeless problem is an order of magnitude worse than it is here. And I will give the city of Austin credit. I think the mayor and the council recognized that we were on a trajectory in terms of the size of our homeless community growing that could put us in that kind of category.
Sure.
The problem in Los Angeles is unsolvable given the size of the homeless problem and the policies that they've put in place. In Honolulu, there's a homeless encampment on the beach that I saw where police will not go. It's literally a no-go zone in Honolulu. It's extraordinary. Seattle, if you haven't seen the Seattle is Dying video on YouTube, which has had millions and millions of views, I would encourage anyone to see it. I hope our mayor and council have seen it. I would wager a pretty good amount of money. Most, if not all of them, have not. And San Francisco, as we all know, from the needles and the defecating, everything else is a total mess. So my concern is that Austin, the mayor, after they put this policy in place, when he went on vacation, he went to LA and San Francisco. So he went to go view the cities that are failing after they put the policy in place. I mean, it's so backwards. So anyway, I know we need to wrap up, but those cities are cautionary tales. We are moving in their direction in terms of policy. And so it's time for citizens to step up and say, no, we're not going to become Los Angeles. We're not going to become San Francisco. And if we have a chance to vote, I really do think 70, 80, maybe 90% of the people are going to say, no, we're going to go back to where we were in June. We're not anti-homeless. We just don't want camping going on in our city. And in the meantime, continue to ramp up the efforts to give them housing and shelter and the services that they need. And the big game changer here, I didn't mention this before, the big game changer from where we are now to where we're in June is the state now has a campground that is not at capacity, that has services, electricity, that's safe. And I imagine if that were to get full, the state would open additional campgrounds. That is the difference right now. One of the things that the homeless advocates would say is, well, if we can't tell them where to go, then we're open to being sued for our policies. Well, now you can tell them to go to the state campground. And pretty soon you're going to be able to put them in some of these other housing facilities that are being opened. So anyway, it's a complicated problem. We don't profess to be experts on homeless policy. We know there are a lot of people doing a lot of good work, but this policy has been terrible for Austin. Anyone who's been here as a visitor, as a resident, has seen that firsthand. The anecdotal experiences that I get shared with me through this platform that I've got now is unbelievable. You've seen this firsthand as well. We have a chance to stand up and say, no, you've gone too far. This is bad for the city. And so I hope people will go to saveaustinnow.com, download the forum, contribute to us, follow us on social media, and help us be successful.
Well, we'll continue to stay on it. I know, Brad, this is an issue you're passionate about after covering it as much as you have. And I just say, again, thank you for joining us. We hope to have Police Chief Manley on as well. We'll hope to talk with him. And we'll just keep following it because, again, it's either going to be on the ballot. It's, not an issue that's going to go away. Very much so. That's very apparent. So we appreciate you coming in this morning and talking with us.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
And we thank all y'all for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you all for listening. If you've been enjoying our podcast, it would be awesome if you would review us on iTunes. And if there's a guest you'd love to hear on our show, give us a shout out on Twitter. Tweet @TheTexanNews. We're proud to have you standing with us as we seek to provide real journalism in an age of disinformation. We're paid for exclusively by readers like you, so it's important we all do our part to support The Texan by subscribing and telling your friends about us. God bless you, and God bless Texas.